Hello and welcome back to Global with John Sopel. Weird and frightening, warm and fuzzy, the vivid recollections that we have that never actually happened. Well, I'll be talking false memories with crowdsourcing artist Alastair Hopwood and Professor Chris French, Professor of Psychology at Goldsmiths University. US federal workers are back at their desks after the deal to end the country's cash flow crisis. But are we going to be doing it all again in a few months' time?
Let's be clear, there are no winners here. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy.
All that's still to come. But first, Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights reads, "Everybody has the right to life, liberty and security of person." Some chance. There are thought to be tens of millions of people around the world who are living as slaves. That includes being trafficked into brothels, forced into manual labour, or becoming a victim of what's known as debt bondage. The new Global Slavery Index by the Walk Free Foundation has released some shocking statistics today. Here are just some of them. Kind of shocking statistics, aren't they? Well, with me is Andrew Forrest, the Australian mining magnate and founder of the anti-slavery NGO, the Walk Free Foundation. Welcome. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
It's kind of shocking when you see those statistics up there, isn't it?
It is. It's, in my country, it's like 1.5 times our population.
What can be done? I mean, first of all, let me know, before we come to that, the scale of it. How reliable are these figures, the statistics that we're talking about?
I think if there's a risk to these numbers, because we've been very cautious, very conservative, they're underdone. If you speak to the econometricians of the world who really study this stuff, they say, look, I'm afraid, Andrew, there's a lot more slaves than you've just counted. But we want to be sure, we want to stand on solid ground. So 29.8 million is, I think, a conservative and safe number.
And let's just go through the various aspects of this, because slavery comes in various shapes and forms today, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So, I mean, so for example, work bondage, if you like, people that are having to work.
Yeah, I think, I mean, how we define slavery is when your liberty is totally removed, when you cannot do anything but stay exactly where you are, you can never leave, you're treated as property, you can be bought, sold, or even destroyed. That's how we view slavery. And it extends from bonded labour, child sex trafficking, forced marriage, where young children are forced into marriages and they never leave that life. They, you get into a situation where you think, why were we ever born? That's slavery.
But forced marriage, that is something that is cultural, that is distinct to certain parts of the world. Is that slavery?
Well, there isn't religious text justification for it, so let's be clear, it's customary. And if you were to ask the people who have been forced, trafficked over borders, sold into various families they've never met before, with cultures and customs they're totally alien to, they'd say it's absolutely forced. And that is one of the many forms of slavery.
And the buying and selling of people, because I think that, slavery is such an emotive word that you think of people in chains from Africa ending up in North America or wherever it happens to be. It is not like that, is it?
No, it's now very sophisticated, and this is leading to the propagation of slavery. The reason why we have more slaves now in the world than at any point in time in human history is because the forces of global commercialization, communication, the ease which syndicates can operate. But it is those same forces, particularly media, particularly the spotlight, globalization of not just commerce but also communication, which leads us to believe now is the time to end slavery.
Okay, so what are you doing with the Walk Free Foundation? What can it do about this?
Okay, well, everyone who is watching this program, when they next walk into a shop, when they next consume anything, should just highlight in their mind or even ask the shopkeeper or the owner of the business, how are you sure that these products aren't produced from people who force people into bondage, force people into slave labour? If they can answer that question clearly, that is a major alert in any event. But also governments from around the world and major companies from around the world, such as my own, can look really hard at their own supply chains. Know for sure, like I found in my own company, that slavery does exist. Know for sure that there are children who, in my own family, we've got to know, who have been forced into slavery, trafficked across borders, managed to escape or been abused and then released because they're no longer used. They hit the ages of 11 or 12. Their kidnappers say, right.
I can understand that, and I'm sure that's very laudable. But is that going to make a real difference? You know, surely then it needs to be at governmental level, that you are kind of telling governments in developing countries maybe that, you know, their behaviours have got to change in the way that people...
Oh, no, look, that's a great question and a very different question. I speak from the perspective, what can mum and dad, son and daughter do? Now, what you're talking about is governments and major corporations having to rely on accurate measurement. If you can measure a problem, you can start to manage it, and eventually you can eliminate it. Now, measurement is what this is all about. We're launching the first in the world's global slavery index to give us a clear light down onto the whole problem of slavery, ranking all countries in the world, country by country, on the prevalence of slavery, how they're combating it, and if they're effective at combating it.
Andrew Forrest, fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much, and good luck with your work, and really grateful that you came into the studio today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, let's get up to date with some other news. And Chinese